One of the topic we have in our today class is cognitive change. The remarkable cognitive behaviors that happen in infancy are highly consistent across environments. Of course, 2 years old are still a long way from cognitive maturity, but some of the most important steps toward that goal are taken in the first 2 years of life. In the following chart, you can observe primary techniques according to the age or month in a child. We find reflexes, primary circular reaction, secondary circular reaction. But first, I want to give you a definition of primary circular reaction that in Piaget's phrase to describe a baby's simple repetitive action in substage 2 of the sensory motor stage. The actions are organized around the baby's body. And we have secondary circular reaction. Piaget phrase to describe the repetitive actions in substage 3 of the sensory motor period. The use of actions are oriented around external objects. Then in this stage, sensory motor stage, Piaget talk about the newborn, who is in substage 1 of the sensory motor stage, is entirely tied to the immediate present, responding to whatever stimuli are available. I recommend you remember especially this chart because we have some terminologies or some definition associated with cognition that are focused basically in this chapter. We have, for example, the substage 2. It is around 1 to 4 months and is marked by the beginning of the coordinations between looking and listening, between reaching and looking, and between reaching and sucking, that are such central features of the 2-month-old means of exploring the world. Well, we have another primary techniques is coordination of secondary scheme. And we find here that basically is in the age 8 to 12 months. And Piaget classified this as substage 4. And when children clear intentional means and behaviors. He classified this period or this stage as that the imitation stage. They try to get the same behavior that adults or they commonly observe in others. And we have 5 and 6 stage when we'll find tertiary circular reaction where the child start with experimentation and try out new ways of playing manipulating object, they commonly are very active, and they according finishing the sensory motor stage between 18 to 24 months, when the mental representation start. We will have a reference in the following slide about object permanence. One of the most meaningful experiments and definition used by Piaget. Well, we find here another reaction that I didn't mention in the last slide. I explained primary, secondary, but we have a tertiary circular reaction, and it is basically the baby doesn't merely repeat the original behavior, but tries out variations. He may try out many sounds or facial expression to see if they will trigger mom's smile, lungs in different places. At this stage, the baby's behavior has a purposeful, experimental quality. Nonetheless, Piaget thought that the babies did not have mental symbols to stand for object in this substate. And we have other definitions that use Piaget according to the age of the child, as for example imitation, when Piaget also studied infants' ability to imitate the actions of others. He observed as early as the first few months of life, infants could imitate actions they could see themselves make, such as hand gestures. But he found that they could not imitate other people's facial gesture until substage 4. It is between 8 to 12 months. This second form of imitation seems to require some kind of intermodal perception, combining the visual cues of seeing the other faces with the kinesthetic cues. It is a perception of muscle motion. And object permanence. And the object permanence is the I will explain you this with an example. If you have an object in your hand or visible to the children, then you cover the object. He can visualize the object. You cover the object with a blanket. He thinks that the object disappears. However, in certain age, in certain month, it is around 6 to 8 months, he developed this object permanence. Then babies will look over the edge of the crib for dropped toys or on the floor for food that was spilled. Then in fact, babies of this age may drive the parent not playing dropsy from the high chair. Infant this age will also search for partially hidden objects. If you cover with a blanket or with a screen the object, and partially you let only the piece of this part, he knows this object is just there. It is object permanence according to Piaget. But if you cover the toy completely with the cloth or put behind a screen, then the infant will stop looking for it and will not reach for it even if she has seen you put a cloth over it. This behavior changes again between 8 to 12 months, as I mentioned before. In substage 4 exactly, infant of this age will reach for or search for a toy has been covered completely by a cloth or hidden by a screen. Well, it is a picture based in imitation. You know that he's doing the same that daddy is doing. Thanks to the advent of computers, researchers have been able to measure infant understanding of objects in ways that do not depend on motor skills development. In many post-Piagetian studies of object permanence, researchers use computer technology to keep track of how infants' eyes respond when researchers move objects from one place to another. These looking studies have demonstrated that babies as young as 4 months show clear signs of object permanence if a visual response rather than a reaching response is used to test it. Moreover, many studies have examined how infants respond to a moving object that temporarily disappears behind the screen. In these studies, most 5-month-olds immediately look to the other side of the screen when the moving object disappeared behind it and were delighted when it reappeared. This finding indicates that infants are holding some kind of representation of the hidden object in mind. When it is behind the screen, the essence of understanding of object permanence is tied to the specific experimental situation. By contrast, babies who are nearing or past their first birthday understand object permanence sufficiently to use it across all kinds of situations, such as when they playfully hide objects from themselves and delight in finding them. Piaget assumed that a baby came equipped with a repertoire of sensory motor schemes, but his most fundamental theoretical proposal was that the child constructed an understanding of the world based on experience. In contrast, recent theorizing suggests that the development of object permanence is more a process of elaboration than one of discovery. Next, an overview about learning and memory. And we find here that infant build and use categories as they take in information. However, categorical organization as a cognitive tool is clearly not well developed in 7-month-old. For one thing, infants of this age clearly do not understand the difference between lower level and higher level categories. Dogs and animals, for example, can both be thought of as categories, but the higher level 1 animals include the lower level 1. Thus, categories such as animals are referred to superordinates. Researchers have found that infants respond to superordinate categories before they display reactions to basic level categories. By contrast, 12-month-old appear to understand both a type of categories. Still, 12-month-old don't yet know that basic level categories such as dogs and birds are nested within the superordinate category animals. The concept that smaller categories are nested within larger one or hierarchical categorization is demonstrated to some degree by 2 years old. About memory, well, you have probably heard that it is impossible to form memories while you are sleeping. And so playing audio recording of your text while you sleep is not likely to help you perform well on your next exam. However, newborns do appear to be able to remember auditory stimuli to which they are exposed while sleeping. This interesting characteristic of infant memory is one of several. An ingenious series of study has shown object and their action as young 3 months of age can remember specific objects. Researcher first hang an attractive mobile over a baby's cribs and watches to see how the baby responds. Notice how often he kicks his leg while looking at the mobile. After 3 minutes of this baseline observation, a string is used to connect the mobile to the baby's leg, so that each time the baby kicks his leg, the mobile moves. Babies quickly learn to kick repeatedly to make this interesting action occur. This researcher next tests the baby's memory of this learning by coming back some days later and hanging the same mobile over the crib but not attaching the string to the baby's foot. The crucial issue is whether the baby kicks rapidly at the mere sight of the mobile. If the baby remembers the previous occasion, then he should kick at a higher rate than he did when he first saw the mobile, which is precisely what 3-month-old babies do even after a delay of as long as a week. Another point about this continue in our next slide. Most of us think of language as beginning when a baby uses her first words at about 12 months of age, but all sort of important development precede the first words. Before we look at this development, here you find a briefly theoretical perspective that tries to explain that. The child's amazing progress in this domain in the early years of life has been explained from both behaviorist and nativist points of view, and as part of the larger process of cognitive development. Then we have in the behaviorist theory Skinner with the language development claim that infants learn language through parental reinforcement. And we have Noam Chomsky with the nativist theory. He thought the language acquisition device contained a grammatical structure of all human language that is activated in any point during infancy. The interactionist theory will find Lois Bloom, Bowerman, Tomasello, and Vygotsky. They think that infants are biologically prepared to attend to language. The language development is a sub-process of cognitive development. Moving forward with the topic of language, we'll find here different theories that support the language acquisition. We incorporate in this topic the infant-directed speech definition. This pattern of speech is characterized by higher pitch than that which is exhibited by adults and children when they are not speaking. Moreover, adults speaking to infant and young children also repeat a lot, introducing minor variation. Where is the ball? Can you see the ball? Where is the ball? There is a ball. They may also repeat the child's own sentence, but in a slightly longer, more grammatically correct forms. We also know that babies as young as a few days old can discriminate between infant-directed speech and an adult-directed speech, and that they prefer to listen infant-directed speech. Well, whether it is spoken by a female or a male voice. This preference exists even when the infant-directed speech is being spoken in a language other than the one normally spoken to the child. Infant-directed speech may also be important to grammar development. Babies appear to find the high-pitched quality of infant-directed speech particularly attractive. And once the child's attention is drawn by this special tone, the simplicity and repetitiveness of the adult speech may help the child to pick out repeating grammatical forms. Children's attention also seem to be drawn to recast sentence. The developmentalists also know that children, whose parents talk to them often, read to them regularly, and use a wide range of words in the speech, differ from children whose parents do not. We incorporate in this a slide. One terminology is receptive language, especially in children. It's important we distinguish the receptive language and expressive language. In this case, receptive language is most of the time found in children around 6 to 8 months. When the children begin to talk sooner, develop larger vocabularies, use more complex sentences. But according to some studies, is determined that it happened around 9 to 10 months. You can observe in this graphic how the vocabulary increase in a research in a longitudinal study with 6 children. You can observe here how is the development of the language in it. You know that some children begin using individual words at around 8 months. Others not only 18 months, some do not use two-word sentence until 3 years or even later. The majority of children who talk may eventually catch up. One study of several, I think that all that have investigated about language and childhood find that the 97% of late talking infant language development was within the average range by age 6. The subset of those who do not catch up is made up primarily of children who also have poor receptive language. This group appears to remain behind in language development and perhaps in cognitive development more generally. In practical terms, this means that if your child you care for is significantly delayed in understand as well as speaking language, you should seek professional help to try to diagnose the problem and begin appropriate intervention. When I explain difference in rate based in the before slide and the following slide. However, we have here a definition, or it is connected with this point, the wide range of normal variation. More than half those who talk late eventually catch up. Those who do not catch up have receptive language problems and possibly other cognitive problems requiring professional help for diagnosis and treatment. Then we have something else here. Difference in style. Expressive style is such children's early vocabulary is not made up predominantly of noun-like words. Instead, most of the early words are linked to social relationships rather than objects. They often learn pronouns as you, she, sorry, you, me, she, Ellie, and use many more of what one child say. For example, personal social words such as no, yes, want, please. The early vocabulary may also include some multi-word strings such as love you, do it, or go away. We have some theorists, as for example Elizabeth Bates, who argue that referential style children are, in some sense, more cognitively oriented. They are drawn to objects, spend more of their time in solitary play with objects, and interact with other people more often around objects. Expressive style toddlers, on the other hand, are oriented more toward people and toward social interactions. Early studies suggest that children who exhibit the referential style acquire language more rapidly than those who show the expressive style. However, subsequent research has found that there is no relationship between style and the rate of language acquisition. Studies in a wide variety of language communities, including Turkish, Croatian, Japanese, New Guinean language called Kaluli, German, and Italian, have revealed important similarities in language development. It means that babies, the word over cue before they babble. All babies understand language before they can speak it. Babies in all cultures begin to use their first words at about 12 months. Moreover, all phrases appear to precede telegraphic speech in every language, with a later beginning at about 18 months. However, the specific word order that a child uses in early sentence is not the same for all children in all language. In some language, a noun-verb sequence is fairly common. In others, a verb-noun sequence may be heard. In addition, particular inflectional learning highly vary orders from one language to another. Japanese children, for example, begin very early to use a special kind of marker called a pragmatic marker that indicate feeling or context. In Japanese, the word yo is used at the end of a sentence when the speaker is experimenting some resistance from the listener. The word ne is used when the speaker expects approval or agreement. Japanese children begin to use these markers very early, much earlier than children whose language contain other types of inflections.